Hey guys, welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today I have yet another exciting side-by-side comparison, and that is between the all-new 2024 Toyota Tacoma here in the TRD Off-Road trim level and that of the recently new 2024 Chevy Colorado Z71. Now, if you guys have followed along here on the channel, then you'll know I've created several different videos on both of these two trucks in different trim levels and different form factors, both for the 2023 and 2024 model year Chevy Colorado, and then more recently here with the all-new 2024 Toyota Tacoma, specifically with the TRD Sport as well as the Limited. And then of course this week, Toyota was kind enough to send out the TRD Off-Road for me to spend a little bit more time with and get an overall more in-depth opinion and viewpoint of this particular truck. But anyways, today I just want to do a side-by-side comparison between these two popular mid-size trucks in a fairly equal or equivalent trim level. The TRD Off-Road is going to offer a little bit more off-road hardware and technology for those that want to actually use it in that type of environment, where the Z71 is still going to be a very capable mid-size off-road truck, but doesn't go quite as far as the TRD Off-Road does with some of the additional hardware, which we'll discuss here later in this video. But anyways, like my side-by-side comparisons, I generally just want to do a quick walk around tour on the exterior, show you guys the interior aspects as well, sit in both the first and second rows of these two trucks, discuss some of the dimensional differences, some of the interior material usage, the technology, stuff like that on a more high-level overview. Jump out back, take a look at these two beds side by side, discuss some of the pros and cons of each of these two. Then of course, take these trucks for a test drive, give you my overall quick driving impressions and driving review, things that one truck does maybe a little bit better than the other and vice versa. And then finally wrap up this video with some of the pricing and other conclusions I have, after spending a little bit of time with these two vehicles side by side. So make sure you guys buckle up, stay tuned here in this video. There's gonna be a lot of helpful, useful information. So without further ado, let's not waste time and get right into it. Now on my left, I have a 2024 Chevy Colorado Z71 finished in Summit White with the black and red leather interior. Now this particular truck is pretty loaded up and typically as loaded as you'll find on dealership lots with Convenience Package 3, Safety, Technology, Advanced Trailering Package. We have the 20-inch alloy wheels, Bose Premium Audio System, the spray and bed liner, as well as even this one has the power sunroof option, which brings the total MSRP to $49,330. Now on my right, I have a 2024 Toyota Tacoma TRD Off-Road finished in the blue crushed metallic exterior with the black leather on the inside. Now this one is a TRD Off-Road premium package, which adds a lot of equipment and is a pretty hefty package by itself, but adds a lot or pretty much everything that you can equip on this particular Tacoma for that premium package. And then this one also has the standalone stabilizer disconnect at the front end, which essentially is the sway bar disconnect for a little bit of additional articulation and off-road capability. Now this one as equipped comes in just under $55,000 in terms of its MSRP, including destination. So there really is right at a $5,000 price differential between the Colorado Z71 and the Toyota Tacoma seen in this video. Sure, you can equip them slightly different and configure them a little bit different or choose a different trim of each particular truck to compare, but make sure you do your research out there. This is what I had available here for the sake of this comparison. But anyways, starting at the front end of each of these two particular trucks, you're gonna find a very similar amount of technology in the overall exterior lighting setup, stuff like that. So both trucks are gonna have LED daytime running lights, LED projector headlights, both low and high beam, and LED fog lights in the respective sections on the front bumper. Both trucks, given this one does have the technology package over here, is going to have the 360 surround view camera systems on the infotainment screen. The one main option you're going to be gaining over here on the Tacoma is going to be the front parking sensors in addition to the rear as well. So you have front and rear parking sensors over here on this vehicle, only the rear on the Chevy Colorado. And then both trucks are going to offer, a fair amount of, off-road capability in terms of, their front approach angles. Although you can see the TRD Off-Road joins the TRD Pro in deleting the front air diffuser on the Tacoma. So some of the other trucks out there will have that, and that definitely does impact your overall approach angle. As you can see, it does, stick down a little bit over here on the Chevy Colorado. But you're gonna have front recovery hooks on both trucks. These are located in red and a little bit more accessible on the Colorado versus they are up tucked away on the Tacoma. And you're gonna have a few additional skid plates underneath the vehicle as well, with a little bit of additional protection over here on the Tacoma in terms of its transfer case, the front approach for some of the subframe and other components there, where the Z71 does have an additional package that you can equip on it that will add a lot of that same underbody protection if you do desire. And then the one other standout bit is the Tacoma will have, for the adaptive cruise control, a radar located right here in the front of the vehicle, where the Chevy Colorado's adaptive cruise control is going to be a camera-only based system located up there beneath the rear camera mirror. So that is basically going to be the high-level differences outside of, all of the appearance and cosmetic bits. Now, next I want to go down the side of the two vehicles and show you some of the differences there. But first, of course, starting with one of the most important aspects, the wheel and tire setup. Now, like I mentioned, the Chevy Colorado does have the optional 20-inch alloy wheels. Otherwise, 18-inch alloy wheels would be standard on this particular trim level. Now, these 20-inch alloy wheels are going to be wrapped in 265, 55, 20-inch Bridgestone Dueler AT all-terrain tires. So you still do get a pretty mild all-terrain if you do equip the 20-inch on the Colorado, but the 18 will come with a pretty nice all-terrain tire as well, in roughly the same size, 32-inch diameter in size. Now, over here on the Tacoma, you're going to have a 17-inch alloy wheel, which means you have a good amount of sidewall, for that additional protection of the wheel and tire, or if you do want to air it down a little bit for some of those more difficult trails. And this is going to be wrapped in a 265 70 17-inch BF Goodrich all-terrain TA, kind of a mild all-terrain as well. So they're going to be pretty equivalent in terms of, what all-terrain type of tire is going to be equipped on these two trucks, and roughly a 32-inch diameter for both of them as well. So same size tire overall in terms of its approximate diameter. In terms of the overall suspension setup though, the TRD Off-Road will come equipped with Bilstein dampers, as well as that sway bar disconnect at the front end that this particular truck is optioned with. Where over here on the Colorado, I believe you're going to get the upgraded suspension and damper setup. I'll go ahead and have more information up on the screen, but it's not going to be quite as aggressive as the Bilstein setup over here on this truck. Now, speaking of the Tacoma, taking a look at the side profile of this truck, you will have, a good amount of black plastics for the, wheel arch flares that come with most of the TRD trucks. You have the black accent door handles, but you will get the body color mirror caps, turn signal integration with the cameras mounted on the bottom. These door handles do still feature proximity detection, which is a nice feature that I personally like on vehicles these days, with, your Toyota Tacoma branding down there below. Of course, heated mirrors, blind spot detection, all the usual stuff there. And then over here on the Chevy Colorado, you're going to have a very similar amount of feature set the way this particular truck is equipped. You don't have any fender flares around the wheel arches, but that is going to be an available accessory on this one if you do want to equip it that way. You still have painted mirror caps, although these are going to be black accent in design with the cameras mounted on the bottom. Nice chrome Colorado badging a little bit higher up on the door with your proximity entry on both of the two front door handles as well. And then the one notable aspect out back is going to be the side step located here in the rear bumper of the Colorado that is standard equipment, unless you get a ZR2 that is going to be deleted. Where over there on the Tacoma, of course, that truck does not come available with the side step integrated into the actual bumper or bedside like some of the other vehicles currently offered, but I think that is an additional accessory if you really do want to get the kickdown type of step on that vehicle. Now, taking a look out back of both of these trucks, you're going to have a little bit of difference in terms of, what they offer. You're going to have some LED lighting on the Colorado with the running lights, but the brake lights, turn signals, and reverse lights, of course, are going to be incandescent. You have the black painted rear bumper with the integrated parking sensors, and of course, that side step that I did just mention. This one is equipped with the advanced trailering package as well, which gives you the connectors 7 and 4 pin with some of the additional functionality on the interior. Chevrolet stamped into the tailgate, as well as your backup camera, your key cylinder, as well as your regular grab handle for the easy open and easy lift tailgate. No power tailgate or anything found on this particular vehicle, but you will get the integrated stow flex, which is a very nice feature for storing a little bit of additional items in there if you do wish to choose. You have some measurements here on the edge of the tailgate, and that is pretty much it in terms of its functionality. Of course, you can lift it about halfway for an even section. So if you want to haul plywood or some other flat 4x8 sheets, you can do that with a little bit of additional support here at the edge of the tailgate. And that is pretty much it in terms of the Colorado's rear end. Now, coming over here back to the Tacoma, You will have full LED lighting for the tail lights. So you have the turn signals, brake lights, and LED reverse lights are all going to be located up there in that housing. You do get a paint match rear bumper with the rear parking sensors that I mentioned. This one does have the trailering hitch installed on the particular truck, which also gives you additional lift points if you do need them for off-road jacks or high lift jacks, if you will. So that is a great addition there on the side of the vehicle. Of course, 7 and 4-pin trailering hookups as well. Rear backup sensors, the Tacoma stamped into the tailgate as well with the nice inserts for an additional accessory on this truck. Toyota branding on the tailgate release handle. You have LED lighting at the back of the truck, rear camera, and then this particular tailgate is going to be a power up-down tailgate, which is the only midsize truck that I am aware of to feature this aspect, which is very unique and can come in handy depending on how you use the truck. Now, immediately you're going to see this is a nice composite material on the bed, but no integrated storage inside of the actual tailgate itself. And then, of course, we will touch on the bed aspects here just a minute, a little bit later in this video. But there are buttons to raise and lower the tailgate on both the left and right side tail lamp assemblies. So simply press that and it will go ahead and raise the tailgate back up. Now, one other item I do want to quickly bring up here on the Tacoma here in this TRD off-road trim in specific and some of the other trucks is the fact that it does use a coil suspension rear end. So as you can see, hopefully up there, you can see the axle with the coil spring as well as the damper located towards the tire. Now over there on the Colorado, you're going to find the more traditional leaf spring setup for the rear axle. So it's a little bit older technology. Some prefer one over the other, but that is going to be what's used over here on the Chevy Colorado. Definitely pros and cons to either one, but hopefully you guys can see that a little bit better here in this particular truck. But that's going to be one of the other main hardware differences underneath the skin between both of these two platforms. So now taking a look at the interiors of both these trucks, first starting out here with the Chevy Colorado. Now, this one being a convenience package 3 truck, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, gives you the nicer seats, in my opinion, in the Colorado's lineup. So this is going to be the same EvoTex material that you'll find in some of the other trim levels. I think it's just a nicer, more plush, soft material versus that of the standard Z71 seat, which uses the same rubberized texture that you find on the door panels, the dash, as well as the center armrest, on the outside bolsters, as well as a more soft premium cloth in the middle. So this would be my pick if I were to get a Colorado in general for the overall seat comfort and material. But anyways, taking a look past that, of course, we have the heated and ventilated front seats, heated steering wheel, trailer brake controller, driver seat memory, Bose premium audio system, wireless charging pad down below. This one even has the optional power sunroof, like I mentioned. So overall, you're going to find a lot of nice creature comfort and amenities as one would expect in a more, loaded up midsize truck in general. Now, the technology is very good inside this vehicle. You have the 11.3-inch Google integration infotainment system with wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, Sirius XM, AM, FM, USB, Bluetooth inputs as well. So all of the usual technology there. Then you have the nice new, made standard for 2024, 10-inch fully digital gauge cluster, which does have, the Google Map integration as well, and can offer a little bit of additional configurability. And here, this one being a Z71, does offer some of the off-road pages as well. So overall, the technology in this truck is, pretty good and pretty competitive as a whole versus that of some of the other vehicles out there. Now, finally, in terms of overall space and, comfort in the front seat, I would say the Colorado does overall, allow for a good amount of space, all things considered, in the midsize truck segment. So if you're looking for, one of the more roomier options in the front seat, I would say the Colorado is certainly going to be one you're going to want to take a look at, because I think on paper and I think in the, from the seat of things, it feels like it has, just a touch more space than that of some of the other trucks out there. So definitely do keep that in mind. But overall, I would like to see this rubberized texture material changed on the Z71. I don't think it feels good to the touch and certainly doesn't look bad. But once you start resting your arm here on the center console, using the leg pad or, the armrest on the door, I think it does feel a little bit on the cheaper and rougher side of things. And then overall, you will find a good amount of hard touch plastics in the interior of the Chevy Colorado or GM midsize trucks in general as well. So do keep that in mind with this truck, but that's going to be about the worst aspect of it in terms of that regard. But ergonomics and, feature set is pretty decent as a whole. Now, jumping into the second row of the Chevy Colorado Z71, you can see I did have to dump my head just a little bit here for the roof line, but overall kind of, to be expected for this segment of vehicle. Now, materials do kind of fall through on the door panel. You get the same rubberized textured material on the armrest portion, but outside of that, the rest of it is going to be hard touch plastics. And I think the biggest, thing to me that I notice in the second row is going to be the relative comfort that you get inside of trucks, specifically with the EvoTech seating surfaces. So the seat bottom itself is actually very, very plush, very soft, and not a bad place to be. The backrest portion of the seat is upright, but I think it offers just a touch more slope or rake to the seat back than that of some of the other competitors in this segment. And I think for those reasons, this might be one of the best experiences in the second row of the midsize segment in general. That's just going to be my feel here sitting in this truck, especially when going back and forth between the Tacoma and this one. But you are going to have a few more amenities such as rear AC vents. You have USB charging as well as a 120 volt outlet here in the second row. Headroom's not too bad. I have about 2 inches of headroom here. And then you do have the center armrest with integrated cup holders as part of that convenience package 3 that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So as a whole, really not a terrible place to be, all things considered, given the physical footprint of this truck. Now, one item I did want to point out and mention is going to be the under seat storage or capability. So you do have a lever that lifts up and then it locks into place. Really do like that. It is a 60/40 split folding design for the seat bottom, but underneath the actual seat you don't have a lot of under seat storage. So do keep that in mind. Fairly limited space down there. You do have your roadside toolkit and jack down there, but outside of that, not a real bunch of storage that you're able to keep underneath the seat itself, and then you can put it down and then locks into place. So that's going to be a look overall at the second row of the Colorado. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Tacoma. Now next, moving into the interior of the Toyota Tacoma, immediately a few things are going to be apparent. Number one is that the interior has a much more busier design, if you will, versus that of the Colorado. Now I say this not in a bad thing, it just comes down to personal preference, but there is more going on in terms of angles, design, the door panels, the dashboard, physical buttons, stuff like that. There's just going to be more going on in the interior of the Toyota Tacoma versus that of the Colorado. Now, speaking of the seat comfort and stuff like that, I think the seats are actually equally, if not just a little bit more comfortable here in the Tacoma, in my opinion, versus that of the Colorado. You will have 4-way power lumbar in this truck on both the driver's seat as well as the passenger seat. So a full power passenger seat is not something that you often see in mid-size trucks like this. So props to Toyota for that. But the comfort's very good. The seat bottom length is good as well. Adjustability, I don't have any problem with. You do have a nice leather-wrapped heated steering wheel, heated and ventilated front seats. All of your physical buttons and controls here on the left side of the steering wheel, including auxiliary, so you can run additional lights or accessories if you wish. 120 volt outlet controls. You have a manual adjustment for the headlight level. Again, not something you see in every vehicle these days, so allows you, if you have a little bit of squat at the rear of the vehicle, you can bring the headlights down, not to blind oncoming drivers, and or vice versa, and raise them back up if you take the load out of the back, for example. But you have the premium JBL premium audio system with a Bluetooth integrated speaker up here as the center channel. So you can take this out, turn it on, and take it with you wherever you may need it. So that's a very unique feature, but not class exclusive, if you will. Digital rear camera mirror. And then the biggest item that, to me, I see in the interior immediately getting in is the giant 14-inch infotainment system sitting right in front of your face. This is a massive screen in a relatively small truck, and certainly will be interesting to hear your guys' comments down in the comment section below what you think of this giant screen. But the icons are massive. It's very easy to get around and use as a whole. So if you're a little bit hard on your eyesight, this might be the truck for you because of those giant icons and symbols on that massive screen. But you have a lot of the same driver assistance technologies, although it is going to be a little bit more advanced and have a little bit more functionality in this truck versus that of the GM ones. But as a whole, the center console layout is totally different. You have all of your drive mode, 4-wheel drive, 2-speed transfer case, locking rear differential, sway bar disconnect buttons all down in this area. And then of course this one does have the power sunroof as part of the package as well. So And it ultimately just comes down to personal preference, which one you like a little bit better. I like several things about this truck, although the design, like I said, is a little bit more busy, or sometimes I actually prefer a little bit of a simpler interior, which you will get over there in the Colorado and or the GMC Canyon. So that's gonna be a look here at the front seat, but let's go ahead and take a look out back. So stepping into the back seat of the Toyota Tacoma, well, there's gonna be a few things that immediately are apparent to me. Number one is I don't have hardly any foot room beneath the front seat where I have it set, which isn't quite all the way down, but it's pretty close to being all the way down towards the floor. So I cannot get my feet nearly as far underneath the seat as I can over there in the Colorado. Legroom's not too far apart, but I do have a little bit less in this truck, which on paper, it is about an inch less of legroom. Now continuing on, the seat bottom itself is a little bit on the firmer side, not terrible, not uncomfortable, but is something to note, a little bit firmer than the Colorado. And the biggest item that I notice is the seat back or the rake is much more upright versus the Colorado, which again makes for comfort a little bit less in the second row. So, you know, I think between all of those aspects and amenities, this truck to me is just a little bit more uncomfortable in the second row if you plan to use it at all for people, pets, or just occasional use, if you will. Just do keep that in mind if you're comparing each of these two trucks. But overall, the materials aren't bad. You have much of the same materials between the two trucks. You have two large cup holders here in the second row, USB-C charging, as well as a 120-volt outlet. But more notably, you do not have any rear AC vents, which again, I see people complain about and say it's not a big deal. But personally, I think AC vents are nice to have all throughout the cabin, so you do not have those unfortunately here in the Tacoma, but you do have a nice second row grab handle if you at all need to use that getting in and out. And you don't have a center armrest in the second row either, so no place to rest your arm in the middle of the truck. And you do have a power sliding middle window that's controlled in the front vehicle rather than a manual design over there in the Colorado for second row occupants to use. So overall, a lot of similarities, but a few key differences, mainly in the overall comfort of the seating position and stuff like that. And then finally, taking a look underneath the seat in terms of overall storage, you might have seen this strap down here and wondering what that's for. Well, that's because the seat does not have any sort of locking mechanism on it. So you will use this strap and attach it here to the back portion right up here, and that will keep the seat from actually falling down. It's a very kind of unique situation, and obviously it uses less mechanical switches and parts, so it might be cheaper to design like that. But overall, not a huge fan of that. But I am a fan of the amount of under seat storage that you have in this particular truck. It's actually quite immense. And you can see there is a huge amount of room. It is all nice plastic lined, so I assume that's mostly waterproof down there as well. So if you like additional storage space inside of the cab of your truck, I think that's certainly going to have to go to the Toyota Tacoma in terms of its overall space. Unfortunately, just not a fan of how they implemented this button type deal that lets the seat fall down and then a little strap here to keep it in place from flapping around. But that's going to be a look at the interior second row of the Toyota Tacoma as a whole. Now, taking a look at the two beds between each of these two trucks, there's going to be a lot of similarities, but a couple big differences as well. Now, both these two trucks, the way they're set up is the roughly 5-foot long bed with very similar dimensions as a whole, but the Colorado actually does offer about an inch or two larger in pretty much every dimension, including length, width, height, and I'm sure the overall volume of that truck might be a little bit bigger as well. Now, the big difference between each of these two is that if you want a bigger bed on the Tacoma, at least in select trims, you can get roughly a 6-foot long bed versus that of the Colorado and GM trucks. Well, they only decide to offer the crew cab 5-foot bed configuration as your only option. So that is going to be a big difference outside of the way these two are equipped. Is just the Tacoma lineup in general does offer a larger bed versus that of the normal kind of crew cab with the smaller bed on the back. Now, anyways, looking past that, both trucks are going to have, multiple tie-down points between each corner. This one has the adjustable bedroll system, which you can option as an additional accessory on the Colorado. You can see it is kind of a mix of a composite material as well as kind of this, rubberized or, anodized, metal on the outside. It is a very interesting combination, where the Colorado over there has the traditional spray-on bed liner over kind of the body paint steel bed underneath. This one has the, available or optional bed mat, I do believe. And then, as you saw, of course, has the power up down tailgate, which you normally don't see on trucks in general. Now, a couple other big aspects of about the way these two trucks are equipped is that the Tacoma actually has the most additional auxiliary power on board out of any regular midsize truck that I've seen. Now, I say regular because this is kind of the standard turbocharged four-cylinder, not the hybrid. And even with that being said, it has a 400-watt household outlet on the right side, which the Colorado does have as well. But it also has 12-volt outlet as well as two USB-C charge ports here on the left side of the bed. So you have three different types of power output on this Tacoma, where you only have that one household outlet on the Colorado. I think that's a fairly big deal, especially if you plan to use it on any tailgating, camping, just need as much output power as possible. That is going to be here on the Tacoma, even that versus of another midsize truck, which I recently featured here on the channel. Now, in addition to this, you're gonna have better LED bed lighting here in the Tacoma, where you really don't have all that much bed lighting over there in the Colorado outside of the light above the cab itself. You have a light on the left side, a light on the right side, and the LED light up there, which makes it very bright and fairly illuminated at night. So I really did like that about the Tacoma, where you look at that Colorado, yes, you can get additional bed lighting as an additional cost, as an accessory, but I think, as the, standard equipment, as part of the package on this truck, I think Toyota has done that quite well. And you do get that bed light on the back of the tailgate as well, where unfortunately that is not available at all on the Colorado. So I think as a whole, although the bed spaces and stuff like that are going to be fairly comparable between each of these two trucks, there's definitely a lot going here for the Tacoma with the available onboard power of the household outlet, the 12 volt, as well as the USB-C. And they even have the fuse here readily available. So if it blows a fuse, you can simply pop a new one in and keep using it. But as a whole, I think the feature set just a little bit stronger here on the Tacoma in its bed space versus that of the Colorado. But again, the Colorado is technically a couple inches larger in pretty much every bed dimension. But then again, you can get the Tacoma with a larger, roughly 6-foot long bed if you do wish. Now, under the hood of both these two trucks, you're gonna find some similarities as well as a few key differences. Now, both are gonna use turbocharged 4-cylinder powertrains paired to 8-speed automatic transmissions, but you're gonna find substantially more torque output in the Colorado versus that of the standard powertrain offered here in the TRD Off-Road. So with the Colorado, you're gonna find the 2.7 liter Turbo Max engine, which produces 310 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque, once again paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, as a whole, this is the exact same powertrain offered in that of the full-size Silverado trucks, so it is pretty impressive that you're able to get the 430 pound-feet of torque, as standard in the Z71 and, most of the trim levels of the Colorado as a whole. Now, coming over here to the Tacoma, this is the 2.4 liter turbocharged engine, once again paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and this is kind of the middle output of this particular engine, if you will. This is not the base kind of work truck offering, but is pumped up a little bit over that particular truck at 278 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque. Now, if you're wondering if they offer any more additional output, yes, you can get the upcoming or newly released hybrid powertrain, which obviously introduces an electric motor, small battery pack, and boosts the power substantially over this kind of standard output in the TRD Off-Road trim in specific. And then the output numbers are going to be slightly tweaked if you opt for the manual transmission of the Tacoma as well. Yes, you can get a manual transmission in select trim levels of this vehicle. So as a whole, you're getting over 100 more pound-feet of torque here in the Chevy Colorado versus that of the Tacoma, although the horsepower numbers aren't all that different. So with all that information in mind, this leaves us at a good spot to go ahead and set up some cameras inside both these two trucks, take each one for a test drive, and give you my overall opinion of how each one drives. So you joined me a few days later, and unfortunately I didn't have time to set up cameras, do the back-to-back driving impressions on both these two trucks, but I did want to kind of sit down, give you my quick bulleted list of my overall impressions and things, kind of that stand out on each of these two trucks. Because I think that is definitely worthwhile information. And if you guys do follow the channel, I did a Colorado versus Ranger side-by-side comparison where I did actually drive both those two trucks, give you my driving impressions, and most of the things I said about the Colorado in that video will also carry over to this one as well. So first up, starting with the Colorado. The things that stand out to me in this truck is the 2.7 liter turbo and the 310, 430 pound-feet of torque paired to the 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, on paper, these figures are very, very impressive. I mean, 430 pound-feet of torque in a mid-sized truck is pretty much unheard of, or at least it was, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And I will say those figures don't necessarily translate into the actual feel of the acceleration behind the wheel. Sure, it's adequate, probably more than adequate for most people out there, but in terms of, that actual figure, it just doesn't feel necessarily the most eager or the most peppy truck out there in the midsize space, even though on paper, like I said, it has some of the most torque out there. This is somewhat due to the 8-speed automatic transmission, maybe the way it is also geared. I think the 8-speed is what it is at the end of the day. If you guys are familiar with it, it's, found in some of these Silverado 1500s with the same engine and, other GM vehicles in general. But it can be a little bit harsh at times, a little bit rough to shift. And, depending on, your throttle application speed, it kind of can hesitate in, what it wants to do. So I think some of that is due to the transmission, but some of that is also due to the way the vehicle, the throttle tuning, everything like that is tuned inside the vehicle. Other things about the Colorado and the way it drives is the suspension is pretty soft, very comfortable. I would say softer than that of the TRD Tacoma Off-Road in specific. So it's a little bit more comfortable to drive on a daily basis, even with the 20-inch alloy wheels that this truck has. And of course, the 18s have a little bit more sidewall to them, and really no complaints with either one. Visibility is very good behind the wheel. You do see a little bit of the kind of more aggressive shaped hood on this truck in most of the seating positions, at least where I set the seat. Forward visibility is no problem. I can certainly see all four or both of the front corners pretty easily, but I will say the side rear view mirror glass is a little bit smaller than that of some of the other midsize trucks I've driven, so that does impact your rearward visibility just a little bit behind the wheel, given the mirrors are just a little bit on the slimmer side and just smaller overall. But I really don't have any issues with visibility out of the Colorado or Canyon trucks. Outside of, I would say, those mirrors being just a little bit smaller, and that's something you do notice right away coming from other vehicles. But now moving over to the TRD Off-Road Tacoma. This vehicle on paper has 278 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque, so very similar to that of the Ford Ranger with the 2.3 turbo in that vehicle. And actually, I think the Tacoma is again a little bit on the lethargic side of things, despite it having similar power to that of the Ford Ranger. Now, the Tacoma also uses an 8-speed automatic transmission, just like that of the Chevy Colorado. And I think both trucks, kind of feel similar behind the wheel in that you need to give it a little bit more throttle or pedal travel to get it to kind of do what you want. And, I'll just say in comparison to that of the Ford Ranger, throwing this in there really quickly, is that the Ranger, for some reason, with its 10-speed automatic, the 2.3 turbo, and the way the throttle was tuned, it was very eager to get up and go. And actually, I was very impressed with its overall acceleration and performance in comparison to these other two trucks. So not exactly sure what's so different about the Ranger, if it's the gearing, if it's the transmission, just the way the engine and throttle is tuned. But even though on paper it has the least amount of torque, it felt the most, impressive in terms of its acceleration. Now, the Tacoma with the base gas engine, as seen in this video, is going to be fine for most people out there. It's not a drag race at the end of the day. We're not doing, 0 to 60 times all the time, but you do know it's a little bit down on power versus that of the Colorado even, and certainly felt even more down on power than that of the Ranger, despite on paper, again, being nearly identical. Now, the transmission of the Tacoma is much like that of the Colorado, I'll have to say. At times, there's a couple harsh shifts here and there. Might be a little bit smoother all around than the Colorado's 8-speed, but I think they do have similar feel behind the wheel and, the way that they go through the gears, the way they shift, the overall smoothness of them. And I think there's more similarity there than there are differences. In terms of visibility out of the Tacoma, again, pretty good. You don't see quite as much of the hood out of the front of the truck. The side mirrors are a little bit larger than that of the Colorado looking out the back. And the headrests do fold down in the the Tacoma, so that makes rearward visibility good if you actually use the regular mirror itself, but it does offer the digital camera mirror that this truck was equipped with that premium package. So of course that made visibility even better if you're okay with using digital rear camera mirrors. I have to say I'm becoming a little bit more accustomed to these camera mirrors, and I'm enjoying to use them a little bit more than I was at first. A year or two ago when they started to become much more prominent inside more manufacturers' vehicles. But visibility is good. Interior space in the Tacoma is going to be the biggest thing I noticed jumping from one truck to the other. Front seats aren't so much different, maybe just a tad smaller all around, but the back seat is really where you notice it between the two trucks, and the vertical portion of the seat back, is just a little bit more comfortable. You have less legroom. It's probably a little bit narrower as a whole as well. So rear seats are just a little bit smaller, and that makes them much less usable on a daily basis. So do keep that in mind if you're going to be, taking a look at each of these two trucks. Yeah, I mean, I will say the forward lighting, LED lighting was very, very good. I would say it's better than the Chevy Colorado with the LEDs, at least from what I remember driving that truck at night. I like the headlight level adjustment to the left of the steering wheel on the Tacoma. And yeah, overall, I think the technology inside of the Tacoma is just going to be better as well. I took that truck on a just over 200-mile round trip road trip, and the Toyota Safety Sense technologies just work better than GM's standard, safety and driver assistance technologies. Of course, the Colorado and Canyon can be equipped with the adaptive cruise control, of course, blind spot detection, etc. But it only has the normal lane keeping assist system, so it does not have lane centering, which means it's the ping pong type of lane keeping, where the Tacoma has not only better functionality out of its driver assistance with the radar as well as camera-based adaptive cruise control and forward collision avoidance, etc. versus the Colorado's camera only based systems. But it also has lane centering. It has haptic steering wheel. It has some of these other features which just are better on a daily basis than that of the GM products with its kind of standard regular safety systems. So I think that was one of the big things to me that I've just been much more impressed with Toyota's and Lexus safety and driver assistance technologies. I think that is pretty much going to do it here for this Colorado and Toyota Tacoma TRD Off-Road comparison video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. As always, I want to give a huge thanks to Toyota for providing the TRD Off-Road seen in today's video, and of course Green Chevrolet for providing the Colorado Z71 as well. You guys have to let me know your thoughts and comments on both these two trucks down in the comment section below. I know that this price point is a little bit tricky in the mid-size truck space. I just want to put that out there, and that the mid $50,000 price point can get you, for example, a Chevy Colorado ZR2 nearly or fully loaded for the most part as well. And I know that the Tacoma lineup in the TRD Off-Road or some of the other trims in specific can be equipped either less and or more to go into the mid $40,000 price point, for example, where the TRD Off-Road starts. But also, up into the mid 50s where this particular truck did have, which was fully equipped, fully loaded, and again, pushes that, next tier of off-road capability mid-size trucks from not only the GM side of things, but also like the Ranger Raptor, for example, etc. But Toyota does offer those, performance vehicles such as the TRD Pro, but that's going to come in, well into the $60,000 price point. So it's kind of all over the place here in the mid to upper $50,000 price point, depending on what you want inside of a midsize truck. But I will say the Toyota Tacoma does offer a lot of comfort, convenience features, some of which are just not found on the competition, especially that of either the Ford Ranger or the Chevy Colorado seen in today's video. So let me know your thoughts and comments down in the comment section below. Would you pay $55,000 for the TRD Off-Road Tacoma as seen here? Or would you rather spend, roughly $51,000 on the Chevy Colorado Z71? But as always, I appreciate continued support. Make sure you hit that like button if you guys haven't already. Subscribe. Check out some additional content on both the Chevy Colorado as well as the Toyota Tacoma here on the channel. And as always, hope to see you guys in the next one.